Welcome and thank you for standing by. At this time, I would like to inform all parties that today's call is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. All participants will remain on a listen-only mode for the duration of the call until the question and answer session. At that time, if you would like to ask a question, you'll press star 1. I would now like to turn the call over to Kaneen Reese. You may begin.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us today. This is our incremental status update on the latest functionality for data.census.gov. And during this webinar, we'll take a deeper dive into the specific features we've worked on or implemented in the last few months. And what you see today and what is currently available on data.census.gov will be the navigation and functionality that is used for the September releases of the 2017 Economic Census and the 2018 American Community Survey 1 year. Now on September 5th at 2 p.m. we'll be having a webinar on the overall navigation and functionality of data.census.gov. And if you're interested in an overview of the site itself, that would be a great webinar to attend. But for these incremental updates, we specifically highlight our latest progress over the last 2 months. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to start with a short background on why the Census Bureau is investing in this change and how data users will access data. Look at where we are with the site and jump into the new features from this update, and then a live demo. And since this is still a developing site, some tips and tricks on how to search for data. And finally, a short look ahead, and then a wrap-up with some questions and answers. So the Census Bureau is investing in this massive change in how data users access data by streamlining this accessibility. So data users will be able to search for all data and digital content available from the Census Bureau in one place. So right now we're still building the site, so the platform along with our new data releases are being previewed on data.census.gov. But then in the next year or so we will integrate this new platform with census.gov so that all data will be accessible off the census.gov search. And that's the end goal. So overall our goals for transitioning to data.census.gov. So we've had overwhelming background from our data user community. And they've told us that people are unable to find the data that they're looking for on census.gov, and mostly because our data resides in various tools that we have created to release data in different ways, like maps and tables and data visualizations and applications. So our customers tell us that they love the functionality of these tools, but the drawback is that not all data are available in these tools, and unless you're aware of them, these tools can sometimes be hard to find if you don't know what you're looking for. We're working to take the best of these tools and apply that functionality to the platform so that all applicable data can have these functionalities all accessible through the search bar. So this will also help efficiencies with one platform, meaning one delivery, so it reduces resources on our end. And finally, this platform provides a greater access to the Census API, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the next slide. So as a developing site, we're developing in 2-month increments, and while you're actively using the site, and we have new data releases. We understand that this may be difficult because it is an ever-changing site, but soon things won't change as much as we finalize this basic functionality and start working on more advanced needs. So all of this is possible by using the agile process of software development. So we build, then we release for feedback, we gather that feedback, we redefine based on that feedback, and then we build again. We won't want to build for several years, release it, and then have you not like it. Even though this is a difficult process, we've gotten a lot of positive responses that people really like having a hand in creating this dissemination system, and we really appreciate your engagement. So one of the biggest questions I do get from data users, particularly those that are familiar with American FactFinder, is why can't you just do all these changes using AFF? So AFF's been around a lot longer, it's more refined, and data users are used to its functionality. So the answer is that American FactFinder is a great dissemination system. We're not arguing that at all. But our vision for the future, and the Census Bureau's vision for the future, is based on the API. The API allows for cells of data to be pulled individually, so as a table or as a group of variables, where AFF was solely table-based. So when someone searched for a poverty rate, AFF returned a several hundred-line table. The API allows for that one single poverty estimate to be returned, as well as the table, as well as across geographies, and so on. So the flexibility using the API is its real power. So taking a look at this diagram quickly, the API is the heart of this platform. So we're utilizing data, metadata, and geospatial services, and then we're releasing those data and services through census.gov, what you see on data.census.gov now, for the typical tables you're used to. But we also add apps and data visualizations and other things. So the Census Bureau hosts the API not only for ourselves, but also for third-party customers who pull our data in their own applications and dashboards. So with the API being the foundation of the new dissemination plan, we're working to reach more developers and make using the API easier for all of our users. So knowing how much the data the Census Bureau does have, I'm sure you can understand what an undertaking this is, not only to transition our data from American FactFinder and our other methods of dissemination, but we're also working to incorporate more data and content. We know we aren't finished and we have a lot of work to do, but the short spurts of building, review, and comments, we hope to get things out to data users regularly for a customer-driven experience. So let's talk about where we are right now. Okay, not all data are available. That's kind of the first thing to be mindful of. So please periodically look at what data are available so you don't inadvertently try to access data that aren't available. Right here is the data that are available for the American Community Survey. As you can see, there's lots of check marks, but then there's some blank areas. The blank areas mean that the data are available. We just need to migrate it from AFF, get it into our API, and then release it on data.census.gov. We expect that in the spring we should have all of these data migrated over. Now here's also the look at the decennial and also econ tables. Our latest of the migration is the SF2 product, the summary file 2 from decennial 2010, and then we also had our first release exclusively on data.census.gov with the 2017 non-employers data. So we talked about, we just saw our first release exclusively on data.census.gov with non-employers data. Also in June, we stopped releasing our new data on American FactFinder, and now we release exclusively on data.census.gov. Those things that were coming to you from AFF will now be on data.census.gov. And then some of our major releases will be happening next month, like we talked about with September. The release of the 2017 Economic Census, also the 2018 ACS 1 year, both of those are in September. And then the 2018 ACS 5-year data will be released in December. So after all of the data from AFF are migrated, we will be shutting down AFF. We're looking at about June of 2020 when we'll be doing that. But right now you can still access the data as an archive system, and it's great to use when the functionality is not available on data.census.gov, like those collections of geographies that we'll talk a little bit more later, like all tracts in a state. We're still working on those collections to be ready for the 5-year. And then also like the address locator. Those are good examples of ways that you can still use American FactFinder, and also if the data have not been migrated over, to go over there. All right, so on to our new updates. So some highlights from our latest release. The main thing we've been working on have been our performance improvements, but we've also done some things to our UI that you'd be able to see, like streamlined our table customization. We also worked on a better download and print views. We improved our advanced search layout. We also had some mapping improvements, and we refreshed the landing page. So specifically, wanted to talk about some of those things. Since we're marching towards the bigger releases in September, our main focus for development has been performance. So performance is always a concern. ACS 1 year has the largest amount of people accessing the site in one day. The ACS 5 year has more people accessing the data collectively, but 1 year is typically that first day. And so we're working on improvements in our performance to make sure that we can handle that load. Some of those things include that we've acquired additional hardware for better performance and capacity. We've also re-engineered the code base for efficiencies and improved our caching methodology. So some of the things that you'd be able to see, and some of one of our bigger changes, visual changes that is our streamlined table customization, where we've tried to make things a little easier, not as hidden as before, a little bit smaller and more streamlined, and also using iconography that many people, or at least some people, are used to. So we've also added a drop-down so that you can easily access and switch between years and data sets, like the 1 year ACS to the 5 year, or the 2017 to the 2016. We have those controls to customize your table to have a click away instead of hidden underneath the chevron, and also reduce the size. So we've also added a better download and print views. One of the things that we've heard from feedback is that people would like to be able to, on the table view in data.census.gov, they'd like to be able to pull a section of the table and then be able to put that directly into Excel. So you can now copy and paste. You can now copy and paste portions of the table and put it into Excel by right-clicking and selecting Copy Cell. And that we've also worked on having an export to Excel. So we know that we won't be able to build a PDF feature. We've heard a lot of feedback about people saying that they would like to be able to have a PDF for download and for printing capabilities of their tables. But what we were able to do before the September release is have this export to Excel. And so this allows you to right-click, and you can select Export Table, and then it will open up into an Excel. We can show you how that's done soon, but hopefully it's not 100% what people have been asking for, but since we don't have time to build that, hopefully this is something that, that might help people. We've also improved our search layout. So we've have an open text box option that's a little bit more simplified. We used to have several, and now we just have one. And then also for our first panel, that browse filter, it remains expanded, so you can easily switch between topics. And then we've also pinned the query at the bottom of the advanced search page so that you can always stay in view and you can always see what filters have been selected. So we've also continued improving the advanced search layout. So in the geography section, we have a summary toggle that can be turned off and on, and it's turned off by default to help you navigate through some types of geographic areas. And also, there's an indicator since we are pulling from the API, we're not just pulling from a static data set. We have a loading indicator that shows you just that we are working, so that you know that things are working in the background. Some of our mapping improvements include that we've added labels, so you can view street names when you're when you're zoomed in, or you can see counties or the labels when you're not as closed in. Some more of the mapping improvements. We view the table of the mapped estimate. So what this is that you're able to, if you were looking at something like all counties in Maryland, and you were pulling one of the estimates, you're able to see it in the mapping view, but then you can also, at the bottom where it says View Table, you can click on that button, and it'll show you a table view. This is very similar to AFF's functionality where they had geographic comparison tables, but those were static tables, so there was only select estimates, and this allows all estimates to have this functionality. So one thing we did hear a lot from people is that our feedback button, this is our call to action to make sure people are aware that we really do need you to review and give us feedback on what you like and what you don't like of the site to help us develop. Sometimes, especially when you have the table in full view, it blocks some of the labels, so you're now able to close that. So, and finally, one of our more notable changes is on the landing page. So when you first go to data.census.gov, we've added some very much needed educational materials and resource links. Also how you can stay connected and provide that feedback that fuels our development. So in those materials, on the left-hand side are the frequently asked questions. This links us with Census.gov's Ask Census, and there are 6 subtopics that you can explore and get some answers to your questions. Of course, if you don't have, if your question isn't being answered in this, please let us know, and we'll add an FAQ and, of course, also answer your question. But hopefully that'll get to some of the basic questions that people are asking. Also, our release notes, we do try to release at the very least every couple of months. And so we want to make sure that you're aware it is a developing site, so we want to make sure that you're aware of the new features, but also the known issues, any defects that we have, and also that chart of available data. And finally, we have a section about Stay Connected. So about webinars, tutorials, and also feedback. So at Census Academy, we have our webinars that have been recorded, so links to that, as well as our data gems, which are a series of short how-to videos, so 3 to 5 minutes. We have a brand new data gem that's available for everyone to go and watch, and it's how to visualize data for your area on data.census.gov, showcasing our geographic profiles that we have. And then finally, we always ask for your feedback, so there's another call to action for you to email subsite.feedback@census.gov. All right. So we discussed the updates from the last few months, but let's see them on the live site. All right, bear with me one second. All right. Here's data.census.gov. And so we've talked about there's 2 ways to start, the single search bar or the advanced search. So we started the single search. I'm going to do veterans in Salem, Oregon. Enter. And then from here we go to our all results page. This page allows you to make a selection of what you want to do next. The first box in the middle is our feature results. Not everything has a feature result, but some of our main topics will give you some key estimates. From there, we also have ability to go to tables, to maps, and to pages. That's our web pages that we're linking into the search system for census.gov so that you get the web pages from that are viewable off census.gov for those that go to quick facts. And then to the right is our geographic profile. This one is for Salem, Oregon. This is just a quick snapshot of the characteristics of Salem, Oregon, and it allows you to look at just a high-level look at the area, and then you can scroll down and find some other key estimates. Over here with age and sex, we have median age in Salem City, Oregon, and then underneath it, for context, it gives you the median age in the United States. So you can scroll down and look at some of those other ones, language spoken at home. You can also click if you wanted to look down and move, go to income. Here's employment. This goes to commuting. So just something that might be of interest to you. And then you can also look at any of those from nation, state, county, and place. But I'm going to go back to our original search, which is veterans in Salem, Oregon. I'm going to click on actually the box that leads us to that table. And then from here, show you the two big changes that we have. The first one is that you're able to change this product. So you can move from 1 year to 5 year. Our search does give you a default to, if it's going to an ACS table, whether it's 1 or 5 year. So Salem is has greater than 65,000 population, so it has a 1 year estimate, so we give you to that. But of course, if you'd like the 5 year, you're welcome to change that, or to any of the other years that we have available. So that's there. Also remember that this table is very similar to almost like an Excel, where you can stretch and see some of those labels that are a little bit bigger, or you can actually hover and see the what the labels would be from there. So from our customization of the table, if you click on Customize Table, and this opens this iconography that you can access and see where these changes are. So the first one, you're welcome to see the data note from here. Also, we've changed the chevrons from just being a chevron to a little button that says Hide, to give people a little bit more information about what they need to do when they see some of those symbols. You're also able to add a geography, pull up, able to add, I'm going to go ahead and add, up here, I'm going to add a county in Oregon. So see the lines from here. You can scroll down. I'm looking for Marion County. You could scroll down, or you can type it in. There's Marion, that. And then you can scroll down and see that these are the selected filters that you have. I have veterans, I have Marion County, Oregon, and then I have Salem, Oregon. So go up, you can click Hide, and then you'll see that Marion County, Oregon has been added. If you look to the side, there's a slight fading that indicates that there's more to the right. Some of our tables can be quite big, and this allows you to be able to view things in a way. Also move down or to the right, and you'll see that those estimates are there, as well as Salem, Oregon. All right, so one thing that we do get lots of questions on, we have not changed the tables themselves. So the way that ACS or Econ or even Decennial, for that matter, have released their data in the past, they've continued to have those same tables. And what this is just a different system that's viewing those tables. So you know, we've had lots of questions about that, so I wanted to let you know. So some of these other buttons that we have really just pull up this advanced search panel. So you can go to topics, you can do surveys, you can choose those codes, which are more economic codes of makes or product and service codes or commodity codes. Hide those. You can do hide or filter if you want to adjust these certain estimates. You can go from there. You can also download. So this is how you download a single table. You're looking at S2101 for 2017, but if you'd like, we're looking at 1 year, but if you'd like 5 year, you can switch those up. And then download. Preparing your files will let you know. Download now, and that'll take you to some downloads, and we'll pull those up in a minute when they're available. Also, you can do mapping from there. So from here, it takes you to Marion County, and it does default to the from the table that you were on S2101 for veteran status. It defaults to that first estimate, but you're welcome to look at a different estimate and go from there. We can also customize the map table, look at the geographies from there. All right, and I can show you some of that in a little bit. I want to show you the advanced search. So sometimes our things that we're looking at are a little bit more complicated and beyond maybe a single geography or single topic. So in this case, I would suggest you go to the advanced search. We can start with a topic, looking at disability. And then I would like to look at the earnings for people with disability. And then we can also go in and choose a geography. Sometimes geographies can be quite complicated, and they can be changing from year to year depending on when boundaries have changed. So I'd like the latest estimate, so I'm going to go ahead and click on 2017 just to be sure. And then from here we have a toggle to show summary levels or to not show summary levels that we talked about. So those summary levels, if you're familiar with the coding scheme that we had, so for me personally, I know that 160 is placed within state that I usually use if I'm looking at demographic data. And then I'll go ahead and choose Oregon. And then I'll look at Salem. We can add that and we'll look at this. It's a good time to show you that you can close the feedback button now that it's covering my selected filters. And then I'm going to actually go back and add a metro area. And I'm going to turn off the show summary levels. And I'm going to go to, oh, I think I passed it. Metropolitan, here we go. Metropolitan statistical area. This is when you don't necessarily know that code that you want to use. And then from here, I'm going to search Salem. And this one goes to Salem, Oregon metro area. So that's been added. And then I'll do one last one and I'll do the county. Could even do the state if we wanted to. So it pulls up Oregon. And then we talked about Marion County. All right, so I think that's enough. You can see there's more here in the selective filter. So you can see it in two ways. You have the search query, but then you also have what we consider to be chips. So it shows disability and also earnings. And then Marion County, Salem City, and then also the metro area, and then our year of 2017. So I'm going to click that down. If you'd like to take something out, you're welcome to. Take the metro out, and that's how you can kind of manipulate things from there. So I'm going to hide that. And then I'm going to click my search button. And then from here, the suggested table is B18101, the median earnings in the past 12 months by disability status, by sex for the civilian, non-institutionalized population, 16 years and over with earnings. It's a mouthful. also B18140. That makes it a little easier. Again, you can go in and you can change if you want 5-year instead of 1 year. It does only show 17 because that's what we selected. And also take a good opportunity to show you the cut and paste option. So from here, copy cells. Cells have been copied. Let me open up my Excel. And then you paste that in. It doesn't includes the labels. It doesn't show you the headers, the headings, but hopefully this gets to some of the functionality that people were looking for they had before. So let me hide this, get back into, there we go. Also showing you the export to Excel. If you right click, go to Export Table, Export to Excel. And then from here, I don't know where my panel went from here. Oh, here we go. Where to Excel? Wait, no, that's one. No, that's another. Hold on. Oh. All right. And here, that's the original download that we did. Let me try to do it one more time. Here we go. Well, it has 2 of them. Sorry about that. 1 second. All right, one more time. Sorry, everyone. Okay, so from here, we're able to export the table, and hopefully this gets a little bit to what people are asking for with the table view. So it has the headers, it has your labels available, and the estimates. So again, this is a great chance to check something out and give us feedback, see if this is a little bit more what you were looking for. All right. From there, I wanted to show you one last thing. And clear. By clearing, you can go to the logo. And then from here, I wanted to just show you some mapping things. So I'm going to do median income, all counties in Oregon. All right. So from here, you can choose between looking at the table. I'd like to look at the maps. I'm going to click on the map view. If you notice, it defaults to 5-year because not all counties have 1-year data, so we want to be able to show you across the board estimates, so it switches to the 5-year. You're absolutely welcome to switch to 1 year if you'd like to see that instead. But if you see, there's lots of missing data here, and we always want to be able to show you if you're comparing or looking across something. We want to be able to across a map. We want to be able to stick with the same data set. So we've moved to 5-year. So from here, you can customize the map, and this is where you would click on Table View, and it shows you that table that we're talking about earlier that's very similar to the geographic comparison tables that's available on ASF. And from here, you can also go to the full table, which would be the full median income table that it's being pulled from. All right, so one last thing, you're able to also, we've done some slight improvements to the mapping functionality and being able to customize the map a little bit more. All right, so from here, last thing I definitely want to show you is on the landing page, some of that educational material that we were talking about. So where you go for questions, release notes, as well as stay connected. So right here we have some of our basic first questions that people ask. This is the what is data.census.gov. You see a very familiar image that we've talked about. You can also go back. There's other questions that you can switch to. You can also look at what are the known issues and defects that are in our release notes that are under here. This pulls up our PDF. It also has a PDF version of our frequently asked questions all in one place. And then also an important one whenever you're reviewing the site is to look at the what data are available on data.census.gov. So this is the latest what's available. And then for our stay connected, we want to make sure that you have all of your questions answered and that you're able to access the latest webinars and tutorials that we have. We're working very hard this month and next month to put as many training and information materials together to make sure that everyone's prepared for the 2018 ACS one-year release as well as the 2017 Economic Census release. So one of those things is a link to the recorded webinar from June, and then also some tutorials. That's the link to those data gems that we have, as well as always, kind of our call to action about to the census.feedback@census.gov. All right, so from here I'm going to go back. Oh my gosh, I don't want to do that. Okay. All right, thank you so much. Here we go. So some tips and tricks that we talked about. We are a developing site, so things are not going to be final. We want to make sure that everyone's aware of the best way to access your data, even if we don't have all that functionality or the navigation is not where you'd like it to be. So a few things. So for quick wins, a single search is a great way to access data. So some of those quick wins are with simple statistics. So if you have one topic by one geography, it's a great way to do it. Also looking at those profiles that we showed you, the geographic profile. If you just type in a nation, state, county, or place, not a nation, only the U.S., but if you type that in and it'll prompt you to the profile if you'd like to see that. Also typing in a NAICS is a great way, or a table ID if you know those, or a group of tables. So here are those examples. So things like the American Community Survey, they have comparison profiles, so a CP. So if you just type that, it'll bring the suite of comparison profile products up. You can also type B27, that's the example for the ACS tables of the health insurance tables. This is very, since we've rolled up all of the years and the data sets, it kind of gives you all of the, in one place, all of the different types of table all under the B27 category. And then you can also look at it directly. If you know your table number, please by all means skip everything that we've talked about, go to the search bar and just type in directly your table. That'll pull up. You can add geographies from there. Very simple and easy to do. Also a great way to do it, like we said, the NAICS code, you can add, so what we did here was to just type in 4451 for all counties in Maryland, and it pulls up those, the county business pattern table for grocery stores. Now that's some of the things that you can do for the single search bar. For the more advanced searches, more complex searches, great way to do it is to, especially when you have a special survey or specific that you'd like to look at. So if you definitely want to look at detailed tables instead of subject tables or data profiles, you can select that. Also, complex geographies, it's a great way to do that if you don't know your tract number, and not many people do. Definitely want to be able to use those faceted filtering features for the geographies. Also, the collection of geographies, great place when we get all of those put in to access those through the geography feature. Cross-tabulation, so if you're looking at health insurance by full-time, part-time by sex, that's a great way of looking at that. Being able to individually add those topics. And then also our detailed population groups. So if you're looking at those special or selected population groups, and where it's looking at a select population and the characteristics of that population, it's a great way to go about looking for that. All right, so looking ahead, we know that we definitely need to add a lot more of our collections of geographies. So right now we only have a handful of those geographies, those being like all counties in a state. But there's a lot more, and we're preparing for the 5-year release. We're putting all of those geographies together, so we hope to have those. We're going to have some soon for a push, and then we hope to have them in the next couple of months, definitely before the 5 years. So please stay tuned for that. So our consolidated feedback process, we just want to make sure that you understand that we do appreciate the feedback that you do give us. Our process does have many parts, and some requests that people give are more difficult than others. So small requests like we got about making the feedback button be closable is very easy, or not very easy, but you know, is much easier than something like creating your own table or having user-defined geographies. We know you want those things too, but that's not in our scope of work for right now. It's not off the table. We're just, the main focus that we have right now is to make sure that we've migrated and gotten the similar functionality from American FactFinder over so that we can retire that system, and then we'll start working into our next phase of development. But we want to make sure that you know that we have heard you and that we've included your feedback in our process, and we hope that when we do get to the point that we're able to address those things, that we're able to, we'll definitely be reaching back and let you know. All right, so please take the time to review the site. Check it out and provide some comments on whether we're getting closer to what you need or if we're missing the mark. So that feedback really does drive the development. So your comments, large or small, do matter. And with that, I think that we can go to question and answers.
Absolutely. If you'd like to ask a question, please press star 1 from your phone, unmute your line, and record your first and last name clearly when prompted. If you'd like to withdraw your question, press star 2. One moment while we wait for questions to queue. Our first question comes from Elizabeth. Your line is now open.
Hi. I was going to ask, I have several questions, but one of the first questions that I have is there's not a PDF function is there ever going to be a PDF function, or that's just not going to happen?
So right now, I do believe we will have a PDF function. If not a PDF function, some sort of image or downloadable image. I think that PDF, there's a lot of back-end constraints to that, and that's why we weren't able to put one in with the time that we had. But I wouldn't say it's completely off the table. We just won't have it in September.
Okay. Can I ask like a couple more, or do you have more questions from other people?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So where you got the codes from, and there were NAICS codes, when you go ahead and put in or upload from AFF the EEO file, will you have EEO codes in there or job codes that we can select from?
So there will be. There will be. The EEO file is kind of a monster, and it'll probably be one of the last things that we migrate over. But yes, those things will be accessible, and it'll be its own code set. Correct.
Okay. All right. And then you've got the cross tabulations. How many items can you cross tab? 2, 3, 5?
So I think it's driven by the tabulated data. So if the data providers have tabulated something that has 3 crosses, then those things would come up.
But only if you pick the correct 3?
Well, yeah. So if you're not sure if your table does that, you might want to just look at 2, or if you know you're just looking at health insurance and you're looking at crosses of health insurance or some topic, I would just maybe just see the breadth of tables that are available for that topic and see if you can find that match. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Yeah, especially if you're not 100% sure.
Oh, okay. Because I thought I was just going to be able to add anything, but okay. No
Well, so that's something different. That's
I know.
So right. So what we are doing, and that's one thing. The tables are not any different. These are still the same look and feel and structure of the tables from American FactFinder. That hasn't changed. Our data providers tabulate those data and then send them to us, and we really just release them and what we call disseminating them. It's just displaying them, basically.
Right.
What you're talking about is more something from maybe like our PUMS file, or where we have our microdata sample, where you could create your own crosses.
Well,
Correct.
we can always hope. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's right. And you're welcome to send that feedback of any crosses that are missing, and we'll make sure that those things are forwarded to the data providers that you're interested in those.
Okay. So I have one last question.
Okay, go ahead.
So you don't have all of the geos in the platform now, but when you migrate everything from AFF into the platform, will you have all of the geos in there already? Because the current 5-year estimates, if you don't have the lower geographies in the platform now, we're still not going to be able to access that. But will you still have AFF open until we can get the lower geographies in the new platform?
Right. So we should have the ACS geographies if you're looking for them, because we do have other 5-year that are in there. But if any geographies are missing because the data maybe haven't been migrated over yet, yes, that's a great way of using AFF, as it's now in kind of an archive status. Not getting new data, but just kind of keeping the data and having accessible the data that they have right now, and going ahead and accessing those until we have the things migrated over that you're interested in. But yes, anything that gets migrated over, if the product goes down to the block level, we'll have the block level available.
Okay, very good. All right, I'm finished. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Mike Schneider. Your line is now open.
Hi, thanks for doing this. Also, I was just wondering, are we going to be able to export the maps either in a PDF or so we can embed it somehow?
So right now, it's not possible. We don't have that capability. We'll have to circle back and see if that's something that's on the horizon, and let y'all know and keep you updated. But right now we don't have that capability. Actually, in the map view where it says download, it's just downloading the table.
Okay.
But we'll put that down as an interest of yours for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Our next question comes from Ruby Zamone. Your line is now open.
Hi. I have a question in regards to the filtering system. Is there a way to save the searches and load the searches as well, like you can with American FactFinder?
Yes, there is. So we actually have an FAQ where it shows you how to save the searches. So let me show you really quickly. Actually, it's on. So how do I save my searches, results or searches, and kind of hopefully gives you some step-by-step on how to create those URLs. And if you still have some questions, just go ahead and send them to that cedsci.feedback@census.gov, and we'll give you the rest of the information or anything that's missing.
Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Our next question comes from Lloyd Mendes. Your line is now open.
Hi, come in. Thank you. To go back to the example you had for Salem, Oregon, you showed us a table of, you generated a table of earnings times disability, and you talked about mapping that. Can you map across tabulated two variables on a map? You know, like a GIS, like an overlay?
So I was able to do that because it was already pre-tabulated, and we're just showing the table itself. But we don't have individual kind of variables and estimates. That's something that you could kind of create your own estimates from like our microdata that you're talking about.
Right, but then to get them, I can easily cross-tabulate on Excel, but the issue is how to get it over onto a map. That I don't have. That capability I don't have without.
Okay, so like overlays, it sounds like, right?
Yeah.
We don't have the capability to do overlays.
Okay. All right. Okay. Another question. Can I generate a one cross-tabulated table using data from multiple annual surveys? Because everything I've seen online on Census is it makes me select my data source from the start.
Right. So yeah, that's kind of how it is right now. You can only do kind of one table or one data source at a time. That's definitely something that we can put down as an interest, though. Because
of course, otherwise we could just download the data and create our own.
Right.
Tables in Excel.
So that's always available to do that yourself. But as far as what we've done, what we're showing and doing on data.census.gov just allows for that one.
Okay. And I do have one message for your superiors, please. It's wonderful that you did this to organize from chaos into unity, but I encourage you not to be straitjacketed by unity. That if somebody in your office comes up with a brilliant idea for a new data analysis that doesn't fit into data.census.gov, I hope you'll give them the freedom to develop something ad hoc. That, you know, entropy is normal, but you should expect it. You know, periodically we organize things, and then our kitchen gets disorganized again. That's a healthy ongoing process.
We're definitely interested in innovation. We're trying to do some standardization because the API wasn't. We're just trying to put some standards where we can, but yes, we're definitely interested in innovation, and we're actually, I think everybody that works with us is very excited to have AFF finally migrated over and that functionality so that we can move forward in some of the things that kind of brought us over here, for sure. But thank you.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Brent Kramer. Your line is now open.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. A lot of the time I'm looking for PUMS data, and that's always been difficult to find in FactFinder. Will it be the same in the new system?
So we do have, so the PUMS, the PUMS data will still be available through the FTP site. We have a way of, actually let me go back and show you on data.census.gov.
Right.
If you just look at it for a table, and I'm just pulling up a base table because I know it's available. If you go to customize.
No, I'm talking about the microdata.
Oh, right. Right. We had a link to get to, oh, here it is, the more data. So the more data takes you to the FTP site that's available. If you're looking for the microdata that's available, that'll still be being created by the data providers. We just have a link to it, and we're working on a new system if you're interested in some of the functionality that Data Ferret had. We're working on a system that kind of a tool to help with the microdata that we hope to have out in the near future.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
We have another question. I'm sorry, caller, your name was not recorded. Your line is open. Please check your mute button.
Hello?
Hi, go ahead.
Oh, hi. Roger Rigger. I had done this earlier. I just want to say thank you. It's my first time on this webinar. I'm not a professional at census data, but I see a lot of promise here. We work in kind of in unison with 70 other chapters of an FBI program, and we're advancing our research, trying to find industries and data about industries and jobs that fall into the 16 critical infrastructures that we're trying to promote outreach and protection to. So I'm glad I found this. I'm turning over your information to our analysts, so they can hopefully find an easier method of researching industry and jobs, because each industry and job has to have a person in charge. So I'm very grateful to this. I just want to say thank you.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate the feedback.
Okay, take care.
Yeah.
Our next question comes from Norm Dweaver. Your line is now open.
Hi, appreciate the session. Two quick questions on table format. I'm very used to the EFF table format. One question is whether or not you can get the margins of error without the plus/minus. I use the margins of error to calculate coefficients of variation, and I can't do that with the plus and minus in the column without stripping them out. Is there a way I can get it in data.census.gov without the plus and minus?
Not through data.census.gov when you do the download, but you can get it that way through the API. It doesn't have the plus or minuses there.
That I don't understand, but I'll follow up on the feedback.
And also the FTP site doesn't include the plus or minuses, so maybe that's another way.
Okay. The other quick question was, I'm used to the format of the tables in AFF, and here you have the column headings in the rows of the first column of the rows rather than at the top of the columns. Is there any way to reverse that aside from transposing the whole table once you get it into Excel?
Okay, so one thing, so the download without the export, if you just download from the site, it won't have the plus or minuses. Sorry, we just looked back on that. The other one, I'm not sure what you mean about the, do you mean when you transpose the table or when it's being downloaded, where the rows and columns are?
When it's being downloaded, can I even display on data.census.gov, or when I prepare for a download, can we transpose the table at that point, or do I have to do it in Excel after the table is downloaded?
So unfortunately, we don't have customization. You can't download once you can't customize the table and then download it. We know that that's something that people would like, so it's in our feedback list, but right now you would just have to download the table and then manipulate it from there.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our next question comes from Sharika Nirveen. Your line is now open.
Hello, thank you so much for your presentation. I'd like to follow up with you on your information regarding the 2018 ACS and basically the rollout of the other different surveys and when they will be released. If you could just provide some more information on that.
So right now we're just gradually moving over the data from AFF. Our main focus has been making sure that we're migrating decennial as well as ACS data. So we know that ACS will be released and we have that timeline there. And then we're starting to release all the Economic Census for 2017. Beyond those things, and of course we know that we'll be releasing the 2020 census, but beyond that we have not started onboarding additional surveys, so things like population estimates. We don't have a timetable right now. That's one of the problems with the good and bad of having these short cycles. You get lots of feedback and are very hands-on with the development, but sometimes it's hard to do these far-reaching times. But we can definitely talk offline and let you know that kind of some of the stuff and some of the materials that we do have, maybe some things that are already on the website that might help you.
Okay, thank you so much. And one more question. One of the slides you were showing was the map, I believe it was of Salem, Oregon. It was a space on the map that it had no data for, and I was just curious as to why there would be no data in a particular area over a period of, if that was over a period of 5 years.
So I see what you're saying. So if it's looking at 5-year data, in addition to, we have what's called data quality. If the sample was maybe too small and to do the estimates, that we do like what we call data quality filtering, and so that could possibly potentially be the why you would have no data returned for something. And you know, unfortunately, it's quite frequent in certain cases, especially with the bigger or more crosses that you do and smaller areas and that type of thing. But we can definitely give you the information to contact the ACSO, which is our American Community Survey Office, that might be able to help you with a little bit more information.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Our next question comes from Robert Bond. Your line is now open.
Yes, how will I pull information from the database based upon post office carrier routes?
So unfortunately, we don't have that data. What we have is just have track and block, so we don't have that that additional data. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Ken Blake. Your line is now open.
Hi, thank you very much, first of all, for the copy and paste to Excel capability. That's going to be pretty handy. My question is, suppose I want to get something like median income for each tract in a given county. Is that possible? And if it is, could you demonstrate the most efficient way for doing that? And if it's not possible, will that capability be available in time for the September release?
So the capability will be available in the September release. Right now, we don't have those collections of tracts and that type of thing. So you could individually get the tracts, but you wouldn't be able to, I guess, type it in all tracts in a state and be able to pull it up from there. Does that make sense?
It does, yes. I noticed that you could go through and select each tract individually if you've got a lot of them in the county. You can...
Right. And that's the frustration that people have, and we don't want them to start pulling out their hair when they're checking out the site. So we want to be very upfront that please learn the functionality and how to use it. But when you're trying to get those collections, go ahead and go to AFF. But we definitely have to have that for the 5-year for sure. And so we're working on, we should have some pushed, we hope, in the next couple of weeks, and then we should have the rest in the next month or two.
Good. That's fine for my personal purposes. I'm a professor. I teach students how to do this, and so
okay.
I don't want them pulling their hair out.
Right, exactly.
One more quick question. I think I know the answer to this, but will you be releasing data by zip code or ZICTA code, perhaps?
Right. So, yes. So the American Community Survey releases data by ZICTA. So that's the 5-year will have the complete suite of products, or geographies.
Terrific.
Well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Those are my only questions. I do appreciate it. Very informative demonstration.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Our next question comes from Colleen O'Day. Your line is now open.
Yes, hi. I think I'm piggybacking off the last question, but will you also have the capability to get all municipalities, all MCDs for a given state in the Northeast at once?
Yes, we will.
That is awesome, because getting 600 of those individually would not be good. Thank you.
No, I know, and a lot of we go to a lot of conferences with a lot of our expert data users. It sounds like yourself, and there's a lot of people saying, I like this site, but until you get those collections in, I just can't use it. And we know that needs to be done. It's more labor intensive than we thought it was to put all this together. And AFF had a ton of them. So we're looking at adding a lot more.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Our next question comes from Lynn Suzio. Your line is now open.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having the webinar today. It's been very interesting. I have a question regarding the county business pattern data, which I know is going to be released in November. The county business pattern data distinguishes industries and business by the number of employees. And in the banking industry, the regulators use a demographic related to businesses by size, but the demographic is based on the gross annual revenues of the business, and it's a critical test that banks are put through, but there's no data I can find other than this proprietary data which has been put out by a credit rating agency. There's nothing on the census website or related that I can find that distinguishes businesses by size measured on gross annual revenue. Is there any such data file that's available on the website or in the Bureau?
So I'm gonna need to send you to one of our economic area experts that would be able to answer that question better than we could. So we can actually, if you don't mind, either in the chat sending your name and address, and we can send it. That would be perfect. I know that you've connected on the chat.
Yes, and I will just say that, well, I'm certainly asking this question on behalf of myself and my business. This will affect, it does affect thousands of banks, and their ability to retrieve data like this would make it a lot easier for them to comply with the regulations and know what the regulators think of them. So it would be a really good thing to do. I'll just say one other quick thing is we use a lot of mapping in our business, and we've downloaded data from the census, and it's easy to import maps. Today's mapping software is pretty sophisticated. So if you get it in a comma delimited file format or Excel spreadsheet or something, it's very easy to bring into a map using some of the software that's available today, and it doesn't take a lot of sophistication either.
That's true. That sounds good. Yeah, I'm glad you're able to use that. And the contact that we're sending you to has a lot to say about mapping software too. So I think y'all would have a good conversation.
It could be interesting. So do you need me to send you my email address in the chat, or do you have that already since you know my identity, or what?
It looks like they have that already, and
okay.
We'll send it to him. His name is Andy Haight, and we'll have him contact you.
That would be awesome. And again, I think this is not just for me. It will affect every bank in the country, so it would be very useful to have. Thank you very much, and a great webinar. I've enjoyed listening to it. I'm looking forward to, I see you got one coming up on small businesses and minority-owned businesses. That looks like it could be interesting too.
Yeah, it should be. So hopefully you'll be able to tune in.
Yes, thank you very much. Again, very informative. Well done.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from John Turner. Your line is now open.
Yes, my question may be piggybacking off of some of the others. So just so that I'm clear on this, is that I do work with school districts, and I don't know if this functionality just isn't activated yet or not. But for example, I notice if I go to the state of Missouri, for example, and it gives me an option to select all counties, and then it will print a nice map for county. But if I go to school districts, there's 518 school districts in Missouri. If I select each one of those school districts with the check mark, it will go through and show the map, so I know the data is there, but there's not the option to select all school districts.
Right.
Manually go through, and that's something that's coming, or is that just...
That's coming. That's coming. That's part of those collections of geographies, and we know how frustrating it is. At the same time that we're working on this site, Geography has had some changes in their software and how they are doing processes, and so it's taken them some time, and it's quite labor intensive to put all of these collections of geographies together. So. But yes, it's coming. We have to have it for 5 year, and we're releasing ACS 5 year exclusively. So those have to be here this fall.
Great, super. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Boyce Hall. Your line is now open.
Yes, thank you. I'm asking a question about the old system is called American FactFinder, and what's the correct name and pronunciation of this new system that you want to convert to?
So we actually just call the system, the website, data.census.gov, because eventually this platform is going to take over and kind of integrate with census.gov, so that if anybody is interested in census data, they just, it's kind of one-stop shop. And so that's why it's really not named that, other than just the URL.
Okay. Then the next question is, like I said, based off of what has been asked about track and block, will the track and block be able to generate a table? And then that table will use can illustrate a map that shows the track number and the blocks on there as well? So the output of the map, will it be
right? So like the labels, yes, the labels should be there for the tracks, and the labels for like the block groups.
Okay, so you can do a search with the track and block.
Right now you can't do a search of those things, but you could go through the faceted filter and choose that geography and then map from there.
Okay, all right. Thank you much.
Thank you.
Our next question, I'm sorry, caller, we did not get your name. If you queued for a question, your line is now open. Please check your mute button.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi. it's me. My name is Margaret Setner. People call me Margaret. My official name is Małgorzata Setner. I used to work for Commerce Department in Europe, so please forgive me my English. And I used to write regional economic analysis there, and I was an economist. Thank you for developing all this system, and I have to say I personally experienced the joy of accessing your data from upstate New York after coming to the United States. So it's really great what we are doing. However, what I see is the need for people to be able to generate their own maps. I know that you are doing this in your system, but guiding them how to get access to software, which is not too expensive for average person in the United States, would be great. And I see the need also to have a software which will not only show states and counties, but also school districts. For example, I was looking at poverty data in the past and the situation of the kids in the public school system in the United States in rural areas, and I thought that the borders are different, so it's hard to compare data on maps if the maps are completely different. And I believe that the possibility for people to generate their own maps is important because they have to, first they may want to make their own indexes from different statistics of yours, or sometimes there is a need for quality checking. So, yeah, so this is what I would ask you for. Thank you.
Okay. So I think one of the things that we have is we have our open API, and then from there you could pull estimates and create your own applications or use them in mapping features. But for data.census.gov, we use everything that's pre-tabulated. So everything that you see has been created by our data providers, and we're just kind of disseminating and displaying it. But if you have other things that you'd like to do, it'd be a great thing for you to send to that cedsci.feedback@census.gov.
But the thing is that you can copy or upload the data to Excel now. So from Excel, you can go everywhere to create your own maps. So this is, this is what I would like to stress, that, showing the other way for people to generate the maps would be great. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your feedback. We'll definitely put that down as an interest for mapping features.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from David Nash. Your line is now open.
Hello. I'm curious about whether the new system will allow us, as we download data, for it to already be pre-joined with the GeoIDs that are needed in order to join it into local shapefiles that we have already on our system.
We'll have to take that back to Geo, our geography area, and see their thoughts on that. They have the shape files, what they have available, but we'll definitely take that back as a question for them.
Okay, thank you.
Final question comes from Matt Britton. Your line is now open.
Hi. So my question, I guess, is very similar to the last one. I was looking at a newly downloaded file from data.census.gov, and the GeoID is not a field that is also in the Tiger shape files. So is there going to be a way to merge those, to join those files in ArcGIS or something?
We'll have to look into it. If that's something that you can, if you've been connecting on on the feed, on the chat, and give your question, or you're welcome to send it to the cedsci.feedback@census.gov, and we'll make sure that we pass that information on to, and if there's any answer from our geography areas, to make sure it gets back to you.
All right, thank you.
There are no other questions in queue.
All right, thank you so much. We just wanted to make sure that everyone saw that we have a series of upcoming webinars that are right here. We have that one that we talked about on September 5th, the data.census.gov, navigating a new site for Census Bureau data. So that's going to be kind of just how somebody that was new would come in and use the site, so it's not necessarily feature specific. And then we also have the, we'll be partnering with the Economic Directorate to have a webinar for the release of the 2017 Economic Census, their first look, as well as the 2018 American Community Survey 1 year, their pre-release webinar. So we hope you can join us at those. And just a reminder that here's some of our materials to stay connected with our webinars, our tutorials, as well as our feedback. And I think that's it. I think, operator, I think we're over. Deb, do you have anything to add?
No. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Hopefully, we will see you in our following webinars. I'll go ahead and send out a link to our Census Academy site where you can find all of the resources that Kenny mentioned. But thank you all for attending.
Thank you for your participation in today's conference. All parties may disconnect at this time. Leaders, please stand by.